there, one on Spring Creek at Brainerd Road, one on Lee Highway at East Brainerd, one on Gun Barrel at Commons Boulevard this afternoon as well. Get the gig from EPB Fiber Optics. The whole family can run Wi-Fi internet devices at the same time. You don't lose speed or performance. 648-1372, EPBFI.com. Mike Wood this afternoon, and the Traffic Center at Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
5:05 is the time here at Hot News Talk Radio. We've got an update now coming out of Murray County in Georgia. A third woman has now surrendered to the Murray County Sheriff's Office in connection with the horrific case of a special needs child who was found in a makeshift cage in a Chatsworth home. 64-year-old Gloria Brown had a bond hearing Tuesday afternoon where she was being charged with false imprisonment and cruelty to children in the first degree. So a chain link fence and no trespassing signs were surrounding the house where those children were found. Investigators say that they found an 8-year-old girl and an 11-year-old boy who had been living in cages for what they're describing as some time. The mother of both children, Stephanie Stone, and another woman, Wanda Redfern, are now in jail without bail. Elaine Roberts has lived across the street for several years, and she said that really nothing unusual was visible from her perspective, although there were toys in the yard that no one seemed to ever play with. The Georgia Division of Family and Children's Services investigated the home in June, but it's unclear so far if any charges were made at that time. The two children are in the custody of the DCFS and are being checked. Officials say that the children are in good condition. An investigator as investigators are continuing to piece together how the situation happened, they say that more arrests could be made in the future, and it appears that a third arrest has now been made in this case where a third woman has come forward. And there was a morning news conference last Friday that outlined the details. A series of calls to the Murray County Sheriff's Office on last Thursday led to a further investigation of that home and the conditions. Two children were an 8-year-old girl and a 11-year-old boy, and they had been found to be living in cages. And investigators arrived at the home early Friday morning. They found the boy inside a homemade cage composed of two twin beds, I should say, stacked on top of each other. Metal hinges and different items were put together to hold them in place, and they actually had some wire ties and plastic zip ties that were holding things in place, according to GBI investigator Greg Ramey. As the investigation continued, they discovered a second cage where the young girl was apparently kept. And it was one of those wooden type beds with rails, but there had been some sort of wood added to it with some metal shelving, and it was secured to it in order to use it as a cage. Investigators say that the children had been living in these conditions for some period of time. It's unclear the time frame so far, but as soon as an update comes out about this story, we'll let you know right here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and Hot News Live at 5, which is what you're listening to right now. I'm the news director here at Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, where we are everywhere. Listen live to Hot News Talk Radio at hotnewstalkradio.com. Click on the TuneIn Radio app, or rather download the TuneIn Radio app for your smartphone, and that can be a BlackBerry or a Windows phone or an iPhone. You can download the TuneIn Radio app, and you can then search for Hot News Talk Radio, and you can listen to us streaming live there on your phone. Hot News Talk Radio is also on Twitter, where you report the world decides. That's AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. You can also save half off right now if you go to hotnewstalkradio.com and click on the half off link for great deals. Hot News Talk Radio is saving you money. That's AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. A new social network has been created for neighborhoods that could help to catch criminals, and local law enforcement is taking notice. The Chattanooga Police Department announced a partnership with what's called Nextdoor on Tuesday to communicate with residents and facilitate a virtual neighborhood watch. And already more than 65 Chattanooga neighborhoods are using Nextdoor. That's all one word. Belvoir has 481 members. Missionary Ridge has 268. And Stewart Heights has 331. And so Fletcher, who's a former police officer, is a current police officer, he's the police chief, Fred Fletcher, says that he's been a police officer for a very long time and rarely, if ever, has seen 331 people at a community meeting. But through a tool like Nextdoor, we can send a message, packages are being stolen, please check between 1 and 4 on your front porch. Fletcher says that Nextdoor shouldn't take the place of calling 911, that's 911, but thinks that it will become another avenue for two-way communication between the police and the community with the goal of building long-term relationships. Police will also be able to share information with members of the next door service, such as crime alerts, emergency notifications, safety precautions and tips, and details for events and Crime Watch meetings. Users don't just talk about crime, though. Topics of discussion range from local events to babysitter recommendations to lost pets. And so 7% of the conversations on Nextdoor comprise events, 8% are lost and found. There's free items, there's crime and safety, there's classifieds, there's recommendations, and there's other miscellaneous discussion as well. Nextdoor is free, but users must first verify that they live within the neighborhood when they attempt to join online. And we'll be hearing more about that on my show, which is Digital Drive, right here on Hot News Talk Radio every weekday from 12 to 1. Here on Hot News Talk Radio AM 1240, we're going to give a full overview of the Nextdoor service, the pros and cons, and we're going to set up an account as well here on Hot News Talk Radio AM 1240. A beer truck driver who investigators say was distracted by his dog lost control of his big rig and then crashed, which spilled beer cans onto the southbound I-75 in Hernando County on Tuesday morning. Florida Highway Patrol investigators say at 7:32 a.m., Malcolm Jamal Wilcox, who's 23, from Fernandina Beach, was traveling southbound in the outside lane, and he was passing over SR 50 when he became distracted by a small dog in his truck. Presumably he's the owner of that truck. He then lost control of his truck, which was hauling Budweiser beer. The truck then went to the outside shoulder of I-75. Wilcox corrected, and the truck crashed into the center guardrail, which then overturned. The crash caused a large number of beer cans to spill onto the roadway, closing the inside lane for more than 3 hours. One tried to loot the beer from the beer truck, although it appears that the area was pretty well shut off by police. So far, it appears that nobody has been injured in that crash. The driver was okay, and he managed to direct the crash to the median. So really, the truck wasn't necessarily inside a lane. It was slightly leaning over the leftmost lane. But the worst of it was the highway was condensed down to one lane. So it doesn't appear that anyone was injured in this particular crash. There's an update now on the driver of a truck as well, different driver of a truck in a crash that occurred in Tennessee here, in the Chattanooga area, I should say. After a week of searching, Benjamin Brewer has now been captured by U.S. Marshals at a shopping center on Friday last week in Lexington, Kentucky. Brewer had apparently been on the run for about 5 days when he was then arrested for his involvement in the crash that killed 6 people. The arrest came just 1 day after he was added to Tennessee's top 10 most wanted. When he was arrested, Brewer was in possession of more than 2 grams of meth, Xanax, and a large undetermined amount of cash. Officials say that he kicked out a squad car side window after they put him in the backseat of a patrol car. The 39-year-old truck driver faced a judge Monday afternoon, pleading not guilty to drug and criminal mischief charges filed by the Lexington Police Department. Last week, a Hamilton County grand jury indicted Brewer on 6 counts of vehicular homicide and DUI for narcotics. His truck killed 6 people, including 2 children, on I-75 in Ottawa back in June, according to police reports. The police wanted Brewer back in Chattanooga to face a trial, but now he has to face these new drug charges out of Kentucky. In a jailhouse interview, Brewer's fiancée, Charity Pennington, who was inside of the semi at the time of the crash and arrested with Brewer on Friday night, says that she and Brewer had no idea that he was wanted by authorities. She says, "I come to Lexington quite often. I like Victoria's Secrets, and there is better restaurants in Lexington," she says. "I didn't know what in the world was going on. I just saw the vehicle in front of me come charging through the parking lot. I had no idea what was going on," she repeated. Authorities won't say what led them to the shopping center on Friday night. In a preliminary report, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration stated that Brewer apparently had meth in his system at the time of the crash. Pennington denies that claim, and she says Brewer did not cause the crash and that he was not on drugs. She says, "There was other vehicles that wrecked in front of us. We were part of a chain reaction collision," said Pennington. "He was involved in the crash. He hit the barrier wall to keep from hitting cars." Pennington and Brewer are both charged with trafficking meth. Brewer also faces criminal mischief charges for damaging the patrol car. His next court date in Kentucky is scheduled for August 19th. Even if he posts the $25,000 bond there, he will not be free. Officials say that because he's a fugitive from Tennessee, there is a holder placed on him, so there really wouldn't be much point in making bail because of that. So because of the holder, he wouldn't be able to go free, seeing as he was at one time a fugitive. Whether he was knowledgeable about his fugitive status or not is still under investigation. So we don't know if he knew that he was wanted or not. So we're not sure of that as of now. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. We are everywhere. Listen live to Hot News Talk Radio at hotnewstalkradio.com. Download the TuneIn Radio app and search for Hot News Talk Radio. Hot News Talk Radio is also on Twitter, where you report the world decides. That's AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. You can save half off now if you go to hotnewstalkradio.com and click on the half off link for great deals. Hot News Talk Radio is saving you money. That's AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Looking at the weather now from the Hot News Talk Radio Weather Center, it's 88.2 degrees right now in our area, and 91 degrees is the high for today, 67 is the low. Tomorrow, 87 is the high, and 62 is the low. Seeing pretty sunny conditions, actually, throughout the rest of the week, and we're expecting rain next week, around this time next week. But as for our weather forecast, it looks like the worst of the rain has already come and gone. We might be seeing some more rain overnight, though, so keep that in mind if you have any travel plans. We may be seeing a bit more rain tonight, so keep that in mind. But as of now, temperatures for tomorrow are going to be quite cool. 87 is a high, 62 is a low in the Chattanooga area. That's a weather update from us here at the Weather Center at Hot News Talk Radio AM 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
5:16 is the time here at Hot News Talk Radio. Vice President Joe Biden is going to be attending the memorial service by the U.S. Marines Forces Reserve and the U.S. Navy Reserve and the city of Chattanooga on Saturday in memory of the sailor, and 4 Marines who were killed on July the 16th in Chattanooga. Secretary of Defense Ash Carter, Governor of Tennessee Bill Haslam, Senator Lamar Alexander, Senator Bob Corker, Congressman Chuck Fleischman, and Secretary of the Navy Ray Mabus, and of course Mayor Burke are set to attend as well. The Navy and Marine Corps family and the city of Chattanooga say will honor the fallen service members, express appreciation to the Chattanooga Police Department and emergency responders, and thank the community for its support. The service is going to be held at the McKenzie Arena, which is, of course, at 720 East 4th Street, and it's going to start at 2 p.m. Availability is limited to 8,500 seats on a first-come, first-served basis. So that's at the McKenzie Arena, where that's going to be taking place at around 2 p.m. So lots of people are going to be present. It appears that the vice president is also going to be in attendance. It's unclear what the president's priority is. So we're not clear what his itinerary is or if he's ever going to visit the city of Chattanooga. We're not sure as of yet. A former student at Lakeview Middle School, told a Catoosa County juror on Tuesday that the school band director had sexually assaulted her in the band room on December the 23rd, 2010. Thomas Harold Blevins III is now standing trial for allegedly sexually molesting 2 young girls who were students at the time. The girl said Blevins, her former school band teacher, got her to join him alone in the school band room. She said that he placed a music stand on the door to warn him if anyone came in before he took her into a storage room and allegedly began sexually assaulting her. She also said that he forced her to perform a sex act on him, and prosecutors said that there is evidence that Blevins has had a history of inappropriate contact with young girls at Lakeview Middle School. Of course, these are all allegations at this point. The two sides are spending Monday getting a jury to try the case at the courthouse over in Ringgold, so we don't have any more details on that so far, but as soon as more comes out, we'll let you know about that right here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. Apparently, EPB is still trying to figure out what happened with the power outage. They're still investigating the cause of the power surges that happened late Monday night that caused booms and flashes of light in the sky, although we did get a report that there was a transformer that exploded. It did knock out power to about 15,000 customers for a brief period of time. John Pless, who's a spokesperson for EPB, said that the problem appears to have been on a 46,000-volt circuit. Of course, that's extremely high voltage. The investigation will continue today to determine what went wrong. Areas affected included Chattanooga Valley, Lookout Mountain, Rossville, Fort Oglethorpe, East Ridge, and part of Southside, he says. Some customers, including some in Brainerd, lost power earlier in the night. And again, we did get a report at one point that it was due to a transformer exploding. We can't confirm that, but we did get an unconfirmed report that a transformer exploding was the cause of that power outage to some 15,000 people. There was a surge of power, so it's possible that a relay switched over to a backup system, although we have not got confirmation, from EPB about that at this time. A Bradley County trustee, Smith, says that tax relief payments are going to be reduced due to legislative action. He says, as it turns out, the state finished with a surplus of $300 million, which went up to $400 million. He said a bill has already been filed to restore full benefits under the tax relief program. Trustee Smith said that the relief applies to those who make less than $28,690 a year, and he said that applies to the income of all who are on the deed. This is Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. We are everywhere. Listen live to Hot News Talk Radio at hotnewstalkradio.com. You can download the TuneIn Radio app and search for Hot News Talk Radio on your smartphone. Hot News Talk Radio is also on Twitter, where you report the world decides. That's AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. And you can listen to Cowboy with Texas, which is coming up next, of course, here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. He's on from 6 to 7. He talks about the day's events right here on Hot News Talk Radio. We also have Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, David Tulis, Mr. Judd, and my show, which is Digital Drive here on Hot News Talk Radio. It's on from 12 to 1 right here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240 and hotnewstalkradio.com.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Costa, host of the Costa Report, every Sunday at 9 a.m. My guest this week was the former U.S. ambassador to Russia and special assistant to President Obama, Mr. Michael McFaul. He'll be here to separate fact from fiction when it comes to Putin's aspirations for Russia. Don't miss Ambassador Michael McFaul this Sunday at 9 a.m. on the Costa Report, right here on WSDT AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
If you have the DTs, the shakes, because your phone is on the fritz, you have nomophobia. You need help. Your telecom doctor is in. Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall. Cell Surgeon yanks open the ribcage of your phone, pries out the dead heart, and puts in the beating life that you lead on your cell phone. Broken screen, phone not charging, water damage, battery given out? Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza. Check us out on Facebook. Open Sunday. Cell Surgeon. We bring your phone back to life. Mention Hot News Talk Radio and get 10% off.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Costa, host of the Costa Report, every Sunday at 9 a.m. My guest this week was the former U.S. ambassador to Russia and special assistant to President Obama, Mr. Michael McFaul. He'll be here to separate fact from fiction when it comes to Putin's aspirations for Russia. Don't miss Ambassador Michael McFaul this Sunday at 9 a.m. on the Costa Report, right here on WSDT AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
522 here at Hot News Talk Radio. Here's Mike Wood with Hot News Talk Radio's Fast Traffic Now.
Thank you, sir. An accident a little bit ago on South Holmes Point, Lindbergh. Chattanooga police are on the scene of that one. Really heavy traffic, 75 south of the Tennessee-Georgia line. Earlier accidents, I believe, the cause there. Cleveland, a 6-vehicle accident, 64 Highway at Willbrook Circle, and another one in Cleveland, Michigan Avenue at Menace right now as well. And a quick peek for you this afternoon at the TDOT Smartway camera. 7524 does look pretty good. The Ridge Cut flowing pretty smooth this afternoon. Busy 153 northbound at DuPont Parkway right now. Mike Wood and the Traffic Center here at Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
It's 523 here at Hot News Talk Radio. An assault call has led the Chattanooga police to a manhunt for a fugitive. Lorenzo Jarrett Jr. has been on the Hamilton County 12 Most Wanted list since June of this year. On Friday night, the Chattanooga police responded to an assault call in the 2000 block of Emma Kate Drive. The victim told police that Jarrett had assaulted him earlier in the day and he didn't want to press charges. However, the Chattanooga police confirmed that there were warrants out for Jarrett's arrest and they found him at a home on the same street. Police say that he resisted arrest, but they were able to take him into custody safely. Jarrett originally faced probation violations for domestic assault, habitual traffic offender, and failure to appear, along with violation of the sex offender registry. Now he's added resisting arrest and disorderly conduct to that list, according to the police in this particular case. So he's been taken off the most wanted list as he is in custody at this point. The Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency awarded East Ridge a $1,000 grant to assist with a stream cleanup project for the fiscal year of 2015 and 2016. The money will then be used to help clean up Spring Creek over in East Ridge. 5 grants at $1,000 each were available for TWRA's 4 regional aquatic habitat protection projects, or AHP, or it's an aquatic habitat protection project anyway, which is a total of $5,000 per region. The projects are to be completed, the money spent, and a report submitted by June the 30th, 2016. The grant money can then be used to buy supplies such as rakes, work gloves, and garbage bags. In addition, the funds could be used to pay disposal fees for solid waste and tire removal, or to provide promotional items such as a project advertisement or t-shirt and refreshments for volunteer support. So the plan is available for public review as well. If you want to check that out, it's on the Tennessee.gov website. But so far, the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency has awarded East Ridge with $1,000 in that grant. So apparently there's going to be advertising options as well on different T-shirts that'll be handed out. Ultimately, though, the money does come from the feds. Tissue freezing treatment apparently gives kids with cancer hope for children of their own. Children who survive cancer quite often face yet another hurdle later on in life, which is infertility. But now children's hospitals are trying a futuristic yet experimental approach that could allow cancer survivors to become parents someday. The process involves removing and freezing ovary and testes tissue. After the tissue is then removed, some of it is stored in liquid nitrogen for the patient's future use, and some is sent to a research lab at Northwestern University in Chicago, where scientists are studying ways to make it work. The researchers hope to have the science figured out by the time the first generation of participants grows up, which could be in around 10 years or so. It's a pioneering effort that could change the lives of those who have experienced childhood cancer, which has about an 80% rate. The procedure has not yet been proven effective in children who have not yet reached puberty, since the parts involved are not yet mature. More than 30 babies have been born to women who had ovarian tissue removed, frozen, and then put back after treatment for cancer or other serious conditions. Frozen and thawed tissue has also proved successful in lab animals, although there is a case in Belgium which provides the most hope for researchers, which involves a woman who had ovarian tissue removed before undergoing treatment for sickle cell anemia at the age of 13. That tissue was then frozen, and 10 years later it was thawed and portions of it were grafted back on. And that procedure allowed the woman to undergo a normal pregnancy and then safely deliver a baby boy. She's the youngest person to date to have a success with the procedure. However, doctors do believe that she had signs of puberty when the tissue was removed, meaning that it's likely that she was a little bit more mature than some of the patients that they may be treating. So as it is now, this is an extremely experimental technology, and it's in its infancy, as it were, as of now. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. We are everywhere. Listen live to Hot News Talk Radio at hotnewstalkradio.com. Download the TuneIn Radio app and search for Hot News Talk Radio. Hot News Talk Radio is also on Twitter, where you report the world decides. It's AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. And we're looking at what's happening in Ferguson, Missouri right now, where the situation has grown to be quite tense. As it is now, there are still protests going on, and it's a state of emergency that's been announced for the region in Ferguson, Missouri, which is, of course, quite close to St. Louis. As it is now, there has been a state of emergency declared following a night of protests in Ferguson that resulted in shots fired. Demonstrators continued to make their voices heard Monday as St. Louis County declared a state of emergency in an effort to maintain order. The renewed protests are following the one-year anniversary of the Michael Brown shooting. A black 18-year-old man who is reportedly a friend of Michael Brown's was shot by the police on Sunday. Tear gas was also fired after people were ordered to leave. So as it is now, there's a state of emergency that's been announced in Ferguson. It's unclear yet if the National Guard has moved in. We've been receiving live updates over Twitter, and the situation appears to be quite tense, perhaps tenser than has been displayed on television, with the situation being quite dangerous for anyone on the ground, no matter their political or racial leaning. It appears to be quite dangerous on the ground in Ferguson. Nearly half of the United States population is now living at risk of damaging earthquakes. Rather, the population is not in danger of damaging the earthquakes. The earthquakes are in danger of damaging the people. About 143 million Americans in the 48 contiguous states reside in areas vulnerable to earthquakes, with about 9% or 28 million living in areas with a high potential for hazardous quakes. Around 18% of Americans, or 57 million people, are living in areas that are deemed to be moderate in their hazard zones, according to a new report published in a journal called Earthquake Spectra. The study utilized U.S. Geological Survey data to predict which areas of the U.S. were most at risk. Those numbers are nearly twice that of the latest estimate from about 2 decades ago that found about 75 million people in 39 states were exposed to a possible damaging quake. The increase is due to an uptick in overall U.S. population, according to the research, and the further concentration of population, especially in risky areas such as California, according to Mark Peterson, a co-author of the study and chief of USGS National Seismic Hazard Modeling Project. Advanced research methods have also added more earthquake risks, including the Cascadia subduction zone in the Pacific Northwest. And if you're wondering about our area, it appears that we are actually in a hot spot. One of the very high concentration areas is, of course, Atlanta, and just above that is the Chattanooga area, which is a concentration zone in and of itself. And you may have noticed that we've suffered from a few earthquakes in recent memory, although none that have been bad enough to really do any major damage to foundations so far. A third woman has allegedly turned herself in a case with child abuse that was happening in a home. It appears now a third woman has surrendered to the Maury County Sheriff's Office in Georgia in connection with the horrific case of a special needs child who was found in a makeshift cage in a Chatsworth home. 64-year-old Gloria Brown had a bond hearing Tuesday afternoon where she's now been charged with false imprisonment and cruelty to children in the first degree. And it appears now that 2 other people have been charged. The mother of both children, Stephanie Stone, and another woman, Wanda Redfern, are in jail, and they do not have bail at this time. Elaine Roberts lived across the street, and she says that everything appeared to be normal at the house, although she did note that there were toys in the yard that never seemed to be played with. And last Friday, the police had a press conference to go over some of the details that they had learned and shared that with the press. 2 children were in that house, an 8-year-old girl and an 11-year-old boy, and they've been living in the cages for what the police are describing as quite some time, according to investigators. And when the investigators arrived at the home early Friday morning, that's last Friday, they apparently found the boy inside a homemade cage that was composed of 2 twin beds that were stacked on top of each other. Metal hinges and different things were put together to hold them in place, and they actually had some wire ties and plastic zip ties that were holding things in place, according to GBI investigator Greg Ramey. As the investigation continued, they discovered a second cage with a young girl that was apparently made out of a wooden-type bed with rails, and there had been plywood added to it and some sort of metal shelving as well to turn it into a cage. Investigators believe that the children have been living in these conditions for some period of time. It's unclear, again, what the time zone is as of now that they're referring to, so we don't know how long these children were held captive as of now. Apparently, that investigation is still continuing. The children are described as being in fair condition, so we're not sure yet about the exact condition of those children, but it appears to be rather poor. Although they're describing it as fair, it appears that their mental state is suffering quite significantly as well. But we keep you updated on that here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and hotnewstalkradio.com. You can also download the TuneIn Radio app and search for Hot News Talk Radio. Hot News Talk Radio is also on Twitter, where you report the world decides. That's AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. We're looking at the weather now here in the Chattanooga area at the Hot News Talk Radio Weather Center. It's about 88 degrees right now in the Chattanooga area, although it does feel quite a bit warmer than that. The high for today was 91. The low is 67. Tomorrow, 87 is the high and 62 is the low. We're expecting to be quite clear all the way. Actually, throughout the rest of the week, we're expecting it to be rather clear with just very, very minor chances of rain all throughout the rest of the week. So the most we'll see is scattered showers, and that's not even going to be very major. The worst of it was behind us. So it looks that the weather is going to actually be quite clear up until next Tuesday. So keep that in mind. That's a weather update from us here at the Weather Center at Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
5:34 is the time here at Hot News Talk Radio. I'm Russell. Here's what's happening. A new social network has now just been created for neighborhoods that could help to catch criminals with local law enforcement taking notice. The Chattanooga Police Department has announced a partnership with what's called Nextdoor, and it's going to be creating communication with residents and facilitate a virtual neighborhood watch. Now, Nextdoor is all one word, and it's the name of this social network. And already more than 65 Chattanooga neighborhoods are using it. Belvoir has 481 members. Missionary Ridge has 268, and Stewart Heights has 331. Police chief in Chattanooga, Fred Fletcher, says that he's been a police officer for a long time and has rarely ever seen 331 people at a community meeting, if ever. And that's what Police Chief Fred Fletcher says. He also says that through a tool like Nextdoor, we can send a message like, say, packages are being stolen, or please check between 1 and 4 on your front porch, and things such as that. Police Chief Fletcher says that Nextdoor shouldn't take the place of calling 911, but he does think that it will become another avenue for two-way communication between the police and the community, with the goal of building long-term relationships. Police will then be able to share information with Nextdoor members, such as crime alerts, emergency notifications, safety precautions and tips, and even details for events and Crime Watch meetings. Users don't just talk about crime, though. Topics of a very wide range of discussion go on the social media network. Nextdoor is free, but members do have to verify that they live within the neighborhood when they attempt to join online. It's unclear right now what that verification process is. We'll be investigating that here on Hot News Talk Radio AM 1240 on my show, which is Digital Drive, right here, Hot News Talk Radio from 12 to 1 here on Hot News Talk Radio AM 1240. Down in Florida on I-75, there's apparently a crash which spilled beer all over the place on I-75 down in Florida. Mr. Wilcox was the driver of this particular truck. He overcorrected when he was distracted by his dog, and the truck crashed into the center guardrail, which then overturned. The truck overturned, not the guardrail. The crash caused a large number of beer cans to spill into the roadway, closing the inside lane for more than 3 hours. Wilcox was ticketed for careless driving, according to the Florida Highway Patrol. Nobody was injured in the crash, including the dog, which distracted him. It appears that both Mr. Wilcox and his dog are doing just fine, and only one lane of traffic was blocked off, although it's unclear how much beer was lost in that particular crash. It's also unclear if people were looting, trying to get their own. A driver in a deadly crash that occurred on I-75 here in Chattanooga has now been charged with additional charges, aside from the ones he was being sought after. And after a week now searching, Benjamin Brewer has been captured by U.S. Marshals at a shopping center on Friday in Lexington, Kentucky. Brewer had been on the run for about 5 days when he was arrested for his involvement in the crash that killed 6 people. The arrest came just 1 day after he was added to the Tennessee Top 10 Most Wanted list. When he was arrested, Brewer was in possession of more than 2 grams of meth, Xanax, and a large undetermined amount of cash. Officials say that he kicked out a squad car side window after they put him in the backseat of the patrol car, and the 39-year-old truck driver was facing a judge on Monday afternoon. He pled not guilty to drug and criminal mischief charges filed by the Lexington Police Department. So last week, Hamilton County grand jury indicted Brewer on 6 counts of vehicular homicide and DUI for narcotics. His truck killed 6 people, including 2 children, on I-75 in Ottawa back in June, according to the police. In a jailhouse interview, Brewer's fiance denies those claims, saying that he actually did not cause the crash and there was a crash already going on, and Mr. Brewer merely swerved into a center rail to avoid crashing into anyone else. It's unclear if those claims have been corroborated by any of the data that we have. And both his fiance and Brewer are now charged with trafficking meth. He also faces criminal mischief charges for damaging the patrol car. His next court date in Kentucky is scheduled for August the 19th, but even if he posts bail or the bond, he's not going to be free, as he was a fugitive at one time. This is Hot News Talk Radio AM 1240 and hotnewstalkradio.com, and get us on the TuneIn app as well, right here, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection: loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. for lunch and dinner. Treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
Are you tired of working in corporate America, or have you recently lost your job and would like to consider owning your own business? If you are, please call me, as I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that fit you, the economy that we're in, and the type of businesses that are right in the greater Chattanooga area. After I help my clients find the right opportunity, I also help them find the best way to finance the business, including paying yourself through the startup phase. If you would like to learn more about opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My name is Bruce Krebs at the Entrepreneur Source. Phone number is 423-875-5621.
You want more business. You want to increase your bottom line. You want to spend less on advertising, imaging your business, and general expenses. You need Trade Bank. Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Trade Bank. Call now to get access to nearly 400 local businesses. Trade Bank. Call 877-2202. 877-2202. Trade Bank. You want to increase your cash flow, your competitive edge, attract new customers, and build a loyal customer base. You need Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Call right now. 877-2202. When you join Trade Bank, you'll get the benefit of free advertising in our monthly magazine, tradebank.com, emails, and mailouts. Join Trade Bank now and receive your Trade Bank debit card with trade credits to spend any way you want with our wide variety of Trade Bank partners. For almost 30 years, Trade Bank has been your voice for small business, a member of the American Bankers Association, and in good standing with you. Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Call now for a free consultation, 877-2202. That's 877-2202. Trade Bank of Chattanooga.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
541 here at Hot News Talk Radio. Here's Mike Wood with Hot News Talk Radio's Fast Traffic Now.
Hey, Russell, I appreciate that. Good afternoon. Still working the 6-vehicle accident, 64 Highway in Cleveland around Willbrook Circle, cleaning up one on Michigan Avenue at Menace, 75 southbound the Tennessee-Georgia line. Really heavy traffic from some earlier accidents. Don't forget about now also about paving on Highway 58 beginning in the morning. The northbound lane of 58 between Webb Road and Oakwood Drive closed 7 o'clock tomorrow morning through 5:30 on Saturday afternoon, so you might want to keep that in mind. Mike Wood, right here at the Traffic Center at Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
542 here at Hot News Talk Radio. I'm Russell, the news director here at Hot News Talk Radio, and this is Hot News Live at 5. Here's what's happening. After a week of searching, it appears that Benjamin Brewer has now been captured by U.S. Marshals at a shopping center on Friday in Lexington, Kentucky. Brewer had reportedly been on the run for about 5 days, and he was arrested for his involvement in a crash that killed 6 people. The arrest came just one day after he was added to Tennessee's top 10 most wanted list. When he was arrested, Brewer was in possession of more than 2 grams of meth, Xanax, and a large undetermined amount of cash. Officials say that he kicked out a squad car door, or rather window, and they put him in the back seat of the patrol car. The 39-year-old truck driver is now facing a judge Monday afternoon, pleading not guilty to drug and criminal mischief charges filed by the Lexington Police Department. Last week, a Hamilton County grand jury indicted Brewer on 6 counts of vehicular homicide and DUI for narcotics. His truck killed 6 people, including 2 children, on I-75 in Ottawa back in June. Police want Brewer back in Chattanooga to face a trial, but first he has to face these new drug charges coming out of Kentucky. In a jailhouse interview, Brewer's fiancée, Charity Pennington, who was inside of the semi at the time of the crash and was arrested with Brewer on Friday night, she says that she and Brewer had no idea that they were wanted by authorities. And so authorities say that what led them to the authorities will not say what led them to the shopping center on Friday night. They have not determined whether or not that's some sort of cell phone surveillance system or just good old police work that led to his arrest. In a preliminary report, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration stated that Brewer had meth in his system at the time of the crash, I should say. Pennington denies that claim, and she says, and again, that's Brewer's fiance. She denies that claim, and she says that Brewer did not cause the crash and that he was not on drugs at the time. She says that there was other vehicles that wrecked in front of us. She says, we were part of a chain reaction collision. That's what Pennington says. And she also says that he was involved in the crash, but he hit the barrier wall to keep from hitting other cars. Pennington and Brewer are both charged with trafficking meth. Brewer also faces criminal mischief charges for damaging the patrol car. His next court date in Kentucky is scheduled for August the 19th. Even if he does post a $25,000 bond, he's not going to be free. Officials say that's because he's a fugitive from Tennessee, and there's a holder that's placed on him, so he can't leave even if he does place his bond. The Vice President of the United States is going to be visiting Chattanooga to attend the memorial service that's held by the U.S. Marine Forces Reserve and the U.S. Navy Reserve and the city of Chattanooga on Saturday in memory of the sailor and 4 Marines who were killed on July the 16th in Chattanooga. Secretary of Defense Ash Carter, Governor of Tennessee Bill Haslam, Senator Lamar Alexander, Senator Bob Corker, Congressman Chuck Fleischmann, Secretary of the Navy Ray Mabus, and Mayor Andy Burke are set to attend. The Navy and Marine Corps family and the city of Chattanooga will honor the fallen members and express appreciation for the Chattanooga Police Department and emergency responders and thank the community for its support. The service is being held at McKenzie Arena, which is at 720 East 4th Street. It's going to start at 2 p.m. on Saturday. Availability is currently limited to 8,500 seats on a first-come, first-served basis. So as it is now, it doesn't appear that they're going to be expanding any sort of seating or doing a second showing, obviously. So it appears 8,500 is the limit. And again, it's going to be held this Saturday at 2 p.m. at the McKenzie Arena, which is, of course, at 720 East 4th Street. It's going to be starting at 2 p.m., formerly known as the Roundhouse. Now it's changed its name to the McKenzie Arena. A girl has testified that a band director at Lakeview Middle School in Catoosa County apparently sexually assaulted her. Thomas Harold Blevins III is standing now trial for allegedly sexually molesting 2 young girls who were students at the time. The girl says Blevins, her former band teacher, got her to join him alone in the school band room. She says that he placed a music stand on the door to warn him if anyone came in before he took her into a storage room and began sexually assaulting her. She also said that he forced her to perform sex acts on him. Prosecutors said that there is evidence that Blevins has had a history of inappropriate contact with young girls at Lakeview Middle. The 2 sides spent Monday getting a jury to try the case at the courthouse in Ringgold. There are more details to follow, but we don't have them right now. It appears that the outcome of that case has not been made clear yet, but as soon as we know, we'll let you know here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240 and hotnewstalkradio.com. EPB is apparently still investigating the power outage that occurred Monday night and caused loud booms and flashes of light to go into the sky. It's unconfirmed what the cause of that was as of now, but we did have an unconfirmed report that it was a transformer exploding. John Pless from EPB says that the problem appears to have been on a 46,000-volt circuit. The investigation will continue to determine what went wrong. Areas affected included Chattanooga Valley, Lookout Mountain, Rossville, Fort Oglethorpe, East Ridge, and part of the south side, he says. Some customers, including some in Brainerd, lost power earlier in the night. The EPB reported at 11:26 p.m. saying we're working with Smart Grid to restore power to people in Rossville, Fort O, Lookout Mountain, and Chattanooga Valley, investigating the issue at substation. So it appears that, according to an unconfirmed report, anyway, a transformer exploded at a substation, but again, that is an unconfirmed report. At this point, EPB is still investigating the exact cause of the problems, which damaged a pole and disrupted a high-voltage power line, but it is likely that storms earlier in the day played some role. Once service was restored, EPB crews spent several hours clearing a path to the damage and repairing it, and they say we appreciate our customers' patience during the time their electric power service was being restored. So it appears now that traffic has been restored to pretty much everyone in the affected area, although we're not entirely certain if everyone has been cleared, but as soon as we find out more details, we'll let you know. Again, EPB has not been very clear. They've been quite clear, but not entirely clear about what the cause of the power outage was. We had an unconfirmed report that it was a transformer explosion, but again, that's not confirmed by EPB at this point. But as soon as we know, we'll let you know here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. Bradley County trustee Mike Smith, in a report to the Bradley County Commission on Monday, says that tax relief payments will be trimmed due to action by the Tennessee legislature. He says, as it turns out, the state finished with a surplus of $300 million down to up to $400 million. He says that a bill has already been filed to restore full benefits under the tax relief program. Trustee Smith says that the relief applies to those who make less than $28,690 a year. He said that applies to the income of all those who are on the deed. He said that there has been an effort to get the word out about the program. Still, he said, there are double the number of people who qualify but did not apply as those who did sign up. Trustee Smith said that despite tax abatements, Walker wound up paying $908,000 in taxes. He said the property tax has been growing by about $600,000 per year, though he said that it is below the one-time level of $1 million to $1.2 million a year. However, he said the numbers may be higher this year, noting the number of parcels has risen and a number of new buildings are going up. The trustee's office this year replaced its aging server and office hardware and software. However, he said that he runs a tight ship, noting that he has resisted a call for buying an office shredder. Commission members asked for more information about the Fort Hill Cemetery Association and what it does with $18,000 it gets annually from the city and the county. County Mayor Gary Davis says that the annual financial report says that the money is spent for mowing. Commissioner Charlotte Peake Jones says, I've got 30 acres and I don't spend $18,000 on mowing. The association tends part of the cemetery and the county the rest. The sheriff's office recently took over the duties from the county highway department. Vice Chairman Jeff Yarber praised the work of the sheriff crews for the mowing and tending the headstones. Commissioner Peake Jones, noting another unfavorable incident involving the Cleveland Police Department, said, maybe we should let Sheriff Eric Watson take over. I'm sure he can straighten it out, in a rather sarcastic tone. Chattanooga police have arrested one person who was apparently on the run, and there was already a warrant out for his arrest, and he may have actually been on the county 12 most wanted list since June. On Friday night, the Chattanooga police responded to an assault call on the 2000 block of Emma Kate Drive. The victim told police that Lorenzo Jarrett had assaulted him earlier in the day, but he didn't want to press charges. However, the Chattanooga police confirmed that there were warrants out for Lorenzo Jarrett's arrest, and they found him at a home on the same street. Police say that he resisted arrest, but they were able to take him into custody safely. Jarrett originally faced probation violations for domestic assault, habitual traffic offender, and failure to appear, along with violation of the sex offender registry. Now he's added resisting arrest and disorderly conduct to that list, apparently. So as it is now, he's apparently in custody, and he's not on that list any longer, as he has been, arrested. The city of East Ridge has gotten a $1,000 grant from the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency, or TWRA, which awarded East Ridge a $1,000 grant to assist with a stream cleanup project for the fiscal year 2015 and 2016. The money will be used to help clean up Spring Creek in East Ridge. 5 grants at $1,000 each were available for TWRA's 4 regional aquatic habitat protection projects, a total of $5,000 per region. The projects are to be completed, the money spent, and a report submitted by June the 30th, 2016. The grant money can then be used to buy supplies such as rakes, work gloves, and garbage bags. In addition, the funds could be used to pay disposal fees for solid waste and tire removal, or to provide promotional items such as project advertisement or T-shirts and refreshments for volunteer support. So a plan is also available for public review, although it's unclear exactly where that is. So how public it is up for debate, but apparently it is up for public review, although the location of that report is currently unclear. There's been a state of emergency declared in Ferguson, Missouri, with protesters and the police facing off following the 1-year anniversary of Michael Brown's death. Following a night of protests in Ferguson that resulted in shots fired, demonstrators have continued to make their voices heard on Monday as St. Louis County, or Lewis County, I should say, has declared a state of emergency in an effort to maintain order. The renewed protests are following the 1-year anniversary of the Michael Brown shooting. One person was arrested, a black 18-year-old man, reportedly a friend of Michael Brown's, and he was actually shot by police on Sunday. Tear gas was also fired after a day of commemoration, which hundreds of people took to the streets of Ferguson. And there have also been reports that the St. Louis, or Lewis, I should say, County PD actually arrested a 12-year-old girl, although those reports are unclear so far. And actually, we just got a statement from the police saying that the 12-year-old girl who was arrested was actually 18 years of age and was simply small, according to these reports. So quite a few mixed bag of reports coming out of Ferguson. It's hard to keep all of it straight, but we'll try to keep it straight for you here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240 and hotnewstalkradio.com. It's Hot News Talk Radio, the Weather Center here at Hot News Talk Radio. I'm Russell. Here's the weather report. Right now, we're seeing temperatures in the 80s, the higher 80s, and tonight 67 is the low. Wednesday, 88 is the high and 62 is the low. Thursday, 85 is the high and 64 is the low. And we're seeing temperatures like that continuing out through the weekend with highs in the upper 80s. We're not seeing any 90s really at all until next week. We're also expecting some rain on Sunday, so keep that in mind for a weekend. It's going to be mostly nice, although Sunday is looking, a little bit rainy with a chance of thunderstorms, although not a very high one. Saturday is only going to be partly cloudy, according to these reports. We'll keep you updated on the weather right here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and hotnewstalkradio.com.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
It's 5:54 here at Hot News Talk Radio. I'm Russell. Here's what's happening. The news director here at Hot News Talk Radio. Nearly half of the United States population is apparently living at risk of a damaging earthquake. About 143 million Americans in the 48 contiguous states reside in areas which are vulnerable to earthquakes, with about 9%, or 28 million, living in areas with a high potential for hazardous quakes. Around 18% of Americans, or 57 million people, live in areas deemed moderate hazard zones, according to a new report published in journal Earthquake Spectra. The study utilized the U.S. Geological Survey data to predict which areas of the U.S. were most at risk. The numbers are nearly twice that of the latest estimate from 2 decades ago that found about 75 million people in 39 states were exposed to a possible damaging quake. The increase is due to, at least according to their reports, an uptick in overall U.S. population and the further concentration of population, especially in risky areas like California, according to Mark Peterson, co-author of the study and chief of the USGS National Seismic Hazard Modeling Project. Advanced research methods have also added that more earthquake risks, including the Cascadia subduction zone in the Pacific Northwest. If you're wondering about our area, we do have a rather high risk in the Atlanta area and in the Chattanooga area, and actually every metropolitan area in Tennessee, although Chattanooga does have a heightened risk, interestingly enough, possibly because we are near a river. But as it is now, Atlanta has the highest risk in our area, even beating Knoxville, interestingly enough. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. We are everywhere. Listen live to Hot News Talk Radio at hotnewstalkradio.com. You can download the TuneIn Radio app for your smartphone, be it a BlackBerry, a Windows phone, or an Android phone, and you can listen to us live on your smartphone that way, and search for Hot News Talk Radio on the TuneIn app. Hot News Talk Radio is also on Twitter, where you report the world decides. That's AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. You can save half off now if you go to hotnewstalkradio.com and click on the half off link for great deals. Hot News Talk Radio is saving you money. That's AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Cowboy with Tex is coming up next right here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. He's going to be talking about the day's events right here from 6 to 7, Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and hotnewstalkradio.com.
Give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
They say you can always tell a Texan, you just can't tell them much. But you can try. Cowboy Up with Tex is on Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 Eastern, and he comments on the day's events. So, agree or disagree, call in and tell a Texan.
Hi, I'm David Tulis, inviting you to make the move with me 9 to 11 a.m. weekdays here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. The David Tulis Show, featuring Nooganomics.com for Chattanooga and beyond. 9 to 11 a.m. weekdays.
If the South would have won, we'd have had it made. I'd probably run for president of the Southern states. The day Elvis passed away would be our national holiday. If the South would have won, we'd have had it made.
NASCAR, Laura Ingraham, David Tulis, Coast to Coast AM, and CBS Radio News. Chattanooga's news, talk, and sports leader.
Hot News Talk 1240.